Now, many centuries before the Industrial Revolution in Europe, Muslims had already started innovating and engineering. The Muslims were actually the first to make industrial uses of tidal power, wind power and steam power. Muslims used the tide to drive machinery. The tide mill was the first machine driven by tidal power and was invented by Muslim engineers in the 10th century CE in Basra. Similar tide mills later appeared in medieval France. As for wind power, the Muslims were using windmills in the 7th century CE to grind corn and to draw water for irrigation. It is reported that windmills were widely used during the rule of Umar ibn al-Khattab, the second caliph of Islam. It was almost 500 years later that references to windmills first appeared in Europe in France in 1105 CE. Another area of great ingenuity of the Muslims can be seen in using steam for power. Engineer Taqi ad-Din described the first practical steam turbine, rotating without the use of an animal, in his book The Sublime Methods of Spiritual Machines, which was completed in 1551 CE. Water turbines were also invented by the Muslims. Dams were built to regulate and channel water for usage, not only in agriculture, but also to provide additional power for mills and other machines. Qaisar ibn Abu al-Qasim, a mathematician and astronomer who died in 1251 CE, made improvements on the water wheels. Such improved types of water wheels are still seen today on the Orontes, a river of Lebanon, Syria and Turkey. The Muslims are also noted as the first to invent various types of industrial mills. These include paper mills, saw mills, ship mills, stamp mills, steel mills, sugar mills and tide mills. By the 11th century CE, mills of all types were established across regions from Spain and North Africa to the Middle East and Asia. In addition to the mills, the Muslims also established the first large factory complexes. For example, these were for astronomical instruments, ceramics, chemicals, distillation technologies, clocks, glass, matting, mosaics, pulp and paper, perfumery, petroleum, pharmaceuticals, rope making, shipbuilding, silk, textiles, weapons and the mining of minerals such as sulfur, ammonia, lead and iron. It was only later that knowledge of these industries was transmitted to medieval Europe. The Muslims also contributed greatly towards mechanical engineering. Amongst the famous mechanical engineers of the 13th century CE was Abu al-Isa Ismail ibn Razzaz az-Zaman al-Jazari. His best work was published in 1206 CE, titled The Book of Knowledge and Ingenious Mechanical Devices. In this, he described in great detail 50 mechanical devices. These include water clocks and the use of a crankshaft in a machine. The crankshaft is one of the most critical mechanical inventions of all time and is central to the automobile engine. We use this device today in many different objects, such as bicycles and cars. Crankshafts, which turn circular motion into linear motion, are also used, for example, in the wheels of a steam engine. Al-Jazari's amazing work in engineering was acknowledged by the world-famous Science Museum in London in 1976, when his water clock was actually constructed and the work model was put on display. Al-Jazari is often considered the father of robotics and the father of modern-day engineering. Muslims also led the world at the time in making clocks. Muhammad ibn Ali ibn Rustam al-Khurasani was a famous maker of clocks, and as a result, he was called As-Sa'ati, the clockmaker. As-Sa'ati invented the big water clock over 600 years before London's famous Big Ben was built in 1859 CE. The water clock alerted hourly beats with a loud sound. In terms of navigation, the Muslims were the first to apply the directive property of the magnetic needle, which is needed to make a compass in order to find their direction while travelling by sea. The Muslims were also the first to use explosive materials in guns and cannons. This allowed bullets to be thrown at the enemy from a long distance. The Chinese had previously used sodium nitrate only, but the penetrating power of explosives was discovered and used only by the Muslims. Therefore, we have so much to be grateful for to the Muslims in terms of the source of the engineering we see around us in the modern day world.